Hello one and all, and welcome to another video on the Bagshap YouTube channel. My name is Mitchell Pattinson, and as always, we are joined by Ethan Daffy. And today, as you can see on the title, and as you can see on the overlay of this video, we are doing our first episode of Trade Talk. It is day one of trade period today, and we're doing a bit of a series for the next week and a half, doing an episode each day of Trade Talk, and pretty much just updating from a Carlton point of view. With what's happening in the trade period. But Duck Boy, I'll throw straight to you. We've done a bit of content the past few days, so it's been a few days since we've last spoken. But first things first, mate, I'll throw straight to you. How are you?
No, I'm well. It's been a pretty busy week video wise, Pato. We've done a fair few videos. Let's be real. I hope people are enjoying the content as much as we're enjoying doing it. So, yeah, it's that time of the year. We spoke about it off air. The kind of silly season. The first couple of days seems to be list managers speaking a little bit of shit for the first couple of days. Let's be real. I think that the bloke who probably talked the less shit was probably our footy boss, but still talked a little bit of stuff with Charlie, just a little bit of media, bit of PR training involved there, Pato. But yeah, it's exciting, and I think we've got 9 days till next Wednesday, which with the deadline. So I'd imagine with Charlie, it could go down to the deadline, I reckon.
Yeah, well, so with Charlie, if this trade was to get done, what do you reckon it would be like late as possible, because that's just how the trade is playing out? Or do you reckon it would be more because the AFL are contacting, whether it's Sydney or Carlton, saying, let's try and just let this grow, let this go a little bit and just wait a few more days? Because I know that we've spoken about it, that AFL probably wants that because it is kind of a main event sort of trade period.
Yeah.
And it's a trade that is probably one of the biggest in the trade period. So is that something that you reckon the AFL would actually be trying to do?
I don't know. I think if it gets to Monday and it's not done, or maybe Tuesday, Arvo, and it's not done, I think it'll get to the deadline. And it really depends on what Sydney and Carlton are. They looking to do other moves? Are they just thinking that's the main deal of the trade period? Who knows? Do they want to get it done quickly? But yeah, there's so many questions. There's probably more questions than answers at this point, Pato. But yeah, I'd think it would be sooner rather than later. Later rather than sooner.
Yeah. But so I'll ask one more question before we get into our first segment. Right now, your percentage of Charlie Curnow staying, what is it?
99.9% chance.
That is going.
Yeah. They're playing the long game. They're saying the same thing every single time. They're saying the same thing. It is no doubt they've told every person at the club, here's a script, and I'll read that off. And if they ask that question, you're answering it like that, Pato. So, no, I have no doubt. It's too far gone now, and I feel like it's for the better for both parties.
Yeah. Have you seen the Nick Austin video?
Yes, I saw bits and pieces of it. He spoke in a very similar language to Chris Davies today, and that's why I call it the trade period script.
Yeah, and I think he spoke well, but you could just see, and I know that I told you about this on text, but as soon as he was speaking about Charlie, I'm like, yeah, there's something going on there. You could kind of just see straight through him. Not saying that he didn't perform the way that he probably should have, but he can't really do much else, and you can see that bit of, not anger, but just that little bit of annoyance in his face when he speaks about Charlie, which, I mean, is completely understandable. So, Daft Boy, let's now get straight into our first segment. And I know that this is trade talk, but I thought they would very quickly touch on George Hewett and him winning the best and fairest. Obviously, second was Jacob Weering. Third was Adam Cherry, which was a bit of an interesting one. Nick Haynes in fourth and Paddy Cripps in fifth to complete the top five, Duffy Boy. But probably not surprising with George Hewett winning the best and fairest, but I think a bit of a surprise there is Nick Haynes coming fourth, because I think he was by far our best player, if not our second player, our second best player for the season. But out of that probably top five, Are you surprised by any names? I know that we've spoken about a guy. So if you were to share someone who you were surprised about, I know which player you're going to mention about. But how good of a season George Hewett had, because I think finally he's getting that recognition that he probably deserves. But also Nick Haynes, once again, a season that probably is well deserved with him coming top 5 in the BNF.
Yeah, no, George deserves it. I thought he spoke really well on the stage. He was really humble. He cracked a few gags, which was good to see. Clearly, he's a loved figure at the club. So he's obviously brought up pretty well. He's a country lad, and probably didn't have everything given to him as a younger guy. You have to kind of seem to work harder when you live in the country. And he threw his support behind Vossi. I thought, that was a big thing for me. Like just having those words, we love him, da 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 da. Didn't seem like just rubbish words that we hear from certain players. So. Really pleased with Hewett. Yeah, Chera was probably the biggest surprise for me. I thought Haynes probably deserved the top 3. Cripper top 5. I guess. There wasn't many other good players. Let's be real. Like if I think Silvani was in the top 10. Not really sure how, but De Koning was up there. That would have been interesting if he played to the best of his ability for most of the year, because it would have been a little bit awkward if he came top 5 in the best and fairest. But yeah, all in all, happy for George, and he's now got his name etched in Carlton history. Yeah,
I think it's well said about George Hewett and the way that he spoke on stage. And I just feel like a guy like that, you kind of know that whatever he says, it's never bullshit. And then if it is bullshit with a guy who speaks like that, you can tell if he is kind of bullshitting. So you kind of know. I mean, like you love to say, like he's meat and potatoes, like he's literally steak and potatoes, and that's he's just that's just the way that he's gone about it his whole life. And I think that's all because of his humble beginnings with him being a country kid, and as you said, having to work hard to get where he is. And now that he's probably so appreciative that he's now at the place that he has always wanted to be, and now he's actually performing and winning a club best and fairest, probably his first, I would assume. I don't think he went even close to the Swans one, so I think it's credit to him. But to complete the top 10, but there were 3 guys that were equal 9th. So 6th was Tom De Koning, 7th was Ollie Hollands, which is a good recognition as well for Ollie. Him coming 7th is probably no surprise, because I don't think there was any other players that really was up there. Sam Walsh in 8th, and to 3 equal 9ths was Zach Williams, Adam Sard, and of course Jack Silvani. So we will move on from that very quickly, Taffy Boy, because we don't really want to spend too much time on Jack Silvani because we don't really like him at the moment, but that's all right. So let's now move on to our first kind of talking point.
Yes, big one today.
And it's Ben Ainsworth. So I don't know if we've actually mentioned it on any videos, but I know that you and I have spoken off air about a lot of times, and even when this guy wasn't even mentioned as kind of a contender to come to Carlton, but now that it has actually made clear that he is wanting to, not 100%, but he was the first person to really get this ball rolling. It's not like Carlton really approached him. He was actually the first person to really start to get this ball rolling. So now that Carlton have shown interest back, I feel like this trade is almost certain to get done. It's just it really is just down to how it gets done. So obviously he is contracted. When you start speaking, I'll find out exactly when his contract ends. But overall, Daffy Boy, I know how much of a fan you are of this player. So I think this is the exact guy that we need for next year.
Yeah. No, this is not just me saying it because we're interested in him, Pato, for sure. I've always kind of had a real, I don't know, there's just something I like about him. I've always liked about him as a footballer. He's that small forward who can play high if you need him to. He's quite strong. He's got a good set shot. He's a good finisher. And I think over the past probably most of the year, I think I've spoken a lot about how we lack finishes in front of goal. And I think a lot of it has to do with the confidence. Sometimes when you're down on confidence, everyone's missing goals from, point blank range, Pato, and we saw that a fair bit this year. But a player like him, I've always, not saying he's a superstar by any stretch, but he's exactly what we need. He is exactly what we need. He wouldn't be, he'd be on 500, 400, 500, 600 around there. That's
there.
cheap these days, I would say. So yeah, I'm really, really pleased when I saw that this morning. I was a bit like, oh, that's a nice one to add to the mix, and especially on the first day of trade period, Pato, where we're probably both thinking, gee, what are we gonna touch on in this episode? But yeah, I'm really pleased. What are your thoughts? Because I just think he's at once again filling a need. We need a forward. We need a small forward, a genuine guy who can finish in front of goal.
And we know that there isn't really a lot of genuine options out there as a small forward. And I didn't really necessarily think that Ben Ainsworth was one of those guys. I think it was more of us kind of hoping that he would potentially find a way. But when we found out that he only signed a contract last year, like midway through last year, is similar to Will Haywood, but now literally a year after, and he's contracted until 2028. So he still has 4 years. I mean, he signed a 4-year deal in 2024, so he still has another 3 years. I mean, 2 years next year now. But just looking at that, it's like that's crazy to me that that he is willing to look elsewhere. And as I've said, he was the guy that really started to get this ball rolling. Yeah. And I seriously think that out of everyone who's kind of available on the market, well, supposedly on the market as a small forward, he's the guy that I'm taking. I'm taking him over Roses 100%.
Yeah,
easily. I mean, I don't think it's even close. And I'm surprised that there hasn't been more clubs really interested in him. And I'm sure now that he's actually made it clear that he might be wanting to leave Gold Coast and also moving to Victoria, I think more clubs will probably be interested in Ben Ainsworth. But kind of just overall, it's quite funny to me how he signed a contract last year, as I've said, but as I've already said as well, Will Haywood has signed a contract last year as well. Yeah. But now they're potentially looking to come, and I mean, I know that Haywood has been open to being a part of that Charlie Curnow trade, but also Ben Ainsworth is wanting to come to Carlton. Those two players are probably, to look at it from a wider lens, where the forward line would now be Mackay, Haywood, Ainsworth alongside Jesse Motlop, and whether it's Lockie Fogarty or whoever it is, Zach Williams as well is in that mix. That's a pretty exciting forward line to me, and we're losing Charlie Curnow, and we're losing Tom DeConning as that kind of ruck forward player, if Mark Pitner was in the side. But also Elijah Hollands probably been told to explore his options. That's another guy who can be in that forward line as well. Yeah. We have looked to trade a lot of these players out, but it kind of does reassure me that heading into next year, if we get these guys in, our forward line can actually look half decent.
Yeah, I think it's more of a modern forward line if you look at that, and I like that you've brought Haywood into it as well. I know a lot of people are a little bit iffy in terms of should he be in that deal. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why. That's definitely not my point of view. Yeah, I guess everyone's entitled. Where we should be asking for more, obviously. And then if it reaches a point where he's the next player in line, I'm fine with that. But like you said, with Mackay, Ainsworth, and Haywood, that'd just be a nice, fresh looking forward line. Just a nice forward line. We're not here. I'm sure you're the same. We're not here going, Haywood's going to kick fucking 80 goals. And I'd imagine Ainsworth's probably more of a chance because he's actually out there exploring his options and doesn't have to be involved in a Curnow trade. But they're just guys who you rock up to the footy and you go, you're going to get out of him. You know what I mean? It's 15-2 for Ainsworth. He's that type of guy. He can roll through the middle sometimes too. But obviously I'd rather him as a small forward. But Mackay, Haywood, and if I'm rocking up round one next year, Pat, I'd be very, keen to see people's kind of thoughts heading into that. Because for me, and I think we'll definitely do a socials post and see what people think. What do people think of a forward line of Mackay, Haywood, and Ainsworth heading into next year? Because there's going to be differing views, and we're open to that. But for me, I would be, if that's round one next year, Pato, I'm not talking flags. I'm just talking, I'm pretty confident, and it's more of a modern day forward line. You don't have to have the big clunky ruckman in the way. You know what I mean? So, and then you might have a Hudson O'Keefe pop in there here and there. Yep. But it just adds that, and guys who play a lot of footy too. Haywood plays every game for Sydney. Ainsworth played every game this year
Yeah.
for Gold Coast, including 2 finals. Like, we were talking about Roses. He couldn't get a game at Gold Coast. He's behind Ainsworth. So you look at it and you go, okay, maybe that's what Carlton were thinking. They're being a little bit more patient rather than going, oh, Roses, let's get him because we need a small forward. You need a forward that's proven at the level. Roses isn't proven at the level. He might be good enough. But a guy like Ainsworth, he plays every week, Pato.
In a pretty good side and in a pretty good forward line as well.
Pretty good. Yeah, it is a pretty good forward line, yes.
Yeah, and also, like, I mean, I know that he has been, like, he is experienced and he has been like in the competition for a very long time, but it doesn't really, like, we would have thought he would have been older than what he actually is. He's 27.
Yeah,
so he's not even looking towards even like the twilight of his career. He's been the prime of his career right now, and we all know it as a small forward. Like, your longevity, like, it kind of extends probably 3 or 4 more years than what a key forward or what a midfielder would. So I'm a huge sort of like, I'm a huge fan of this trade. But if this trade was to get done, so we know that it won't involve Charlie Curnow. Maybe it might be a 3-club trade, and maybe it might be Ainsworth to Carlton, Hewett to Carlton, and then, I don't know, like, maybe like a 3-club trade with Carlton, Sydney, and Gold Coast, which would be quite fascinating. But if it was Carlton and Gold Coast as a straight trade, what trade do you kind of expect this to look like?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It'll have to be a bit more than people probably initially think, because he's contracted, played every game this year. Clearly, you know, I'm not going to say he won't be a first, I don't think. Maybe a second rounder, I'd say. A second rounder, close to a first, maybe. Yeah, I'd say a second rounder. If you know, and you also look at their situation, like, they've got a lot of moving parts in their trade period too. So they might want to just go, okay, he wants a fresh start, so let's just move him on. They've got Jamara coming in. They've got obviously Petrarca they've got to deal with. The Demons I just read then that they're not during the episode, but before the episode, that they're playing real hardball for him. So which I actually rate, to be honest, because obviously he's a contracted player at Melbourne. So hopefully it ends up working in our favour. But yeah, a second rounder or something like that for him would be, I think, an ideal situation, Pato.
Yeah, I completely agree. And hearing that, knowing that the first round probably goes to maybe mid-20s, maybe late 20s as well. That's pretty good. So I would even be happy to explore the sauce pick, which is pick 19 compo. So I'm probably seeing that, and we all know that it won't push. Be pick 19, but it might be pushed to maybe 24, 25. I'm easy. Straight to Gold Coast. Welcome Ben Ainsworth to Carlton. So that's something that I'm quite excited about. So, and that's the thing, we haven't even traded away Charlie, who we know that we would get a lot of assets from.
Yes.
So, and that's why we are about to transition into the Chris Davies comments earlier today about Charlie Curnow and how pleased we are with how hardball Carlton are playing. But also, like, so Ben Ainsworth is 27, he's turning 28 in Feb next year. So right there, you've got 5 or 6 years left that you know that this guy can play at the top level. And we all know that Gold Coast have a lot of players like this. So he might actually be proven to he might actually explode even more than be even a better player than we
absolutely,
because he's in a club that is dying for this type of player, and we all know that we want Bailey Humphrey, which hopefully it still gets done, but not looking too likely at the moment. I mean, Ben Ainsworth would be a fantastic second option. So I'm taking Ben Ainsworth definitely, but definitely let's now move on, as I just said, to the Chris Davies comments, and so I'll go through Charlie's comment first about Chris Davies, but I'll also transition to what the Swans connection is with Chris Keane as well about Charlie Curnow. But he said, I don't think there's a value in me going through hypotheticals, so we want Charlie to remain a Carlton player. So that is what Chris Davies has said. But then obviously Chris Keane has also said he is contracted for 4 years, but we will have private conversations with Carlton. We will put forward what we think is a suitable offer at the right time. So to me, it's a bit like what Andrew Mackey said a few weeks ago about like, oh yeah, like we will let Carlton really say what Charlie is worth, and then we'll work around that. And I just think Geelong are now completely out of the conversation, which is probably a good thing because we know that Sydney is probably the one club that looks like this trade would get done and we would get really good assets from the trade. But also hearing about Chris Davis and what he's kind of spoken about, like with him actually being able to come out and say, look, this is what we're kind of doing. We want Charlie Curnow to remain a Carlton player. And the whole conversation and the whole narrative around Charlie Curnow has been, yep, he's preparing for preseason and he will be a Carlton player in 2026. So that, I mean, I know that Sydney probably know the inner sanctum of Charlie Curnow's situation, but also Carlton are saying exactly what Sydney don't want them to say. They want them to say, yeah, he's on the trade table. No. They're saying he's a contracted player. He's a required player. He's getting ready for preseason at the Carlton Football Club. So, Dav, I want to hear your thoughts on Chris Davis and him coming out with what we want Charlie to remain a Carlton player, but also on Chris Keane about his thoughts about how, his overall thoughts about how Sydney will have to give up a lot to secure Charlie's services.
Yeah, it's like I said at the start of the video, it's a very, a clear direction, a clear kind of message the club's trying to send in terms of that. And, it's like you said, it's hard to answer, I'd say, at the moment. It's a tough situation. They're speaking perfectly with Davey saying, it's been tough for Charlie, but, he's a Carlton. We want him to be a Carlton person. We'll wrap our arms around him. And, they're playing the game to perfection. And like you said, the Swans would be going, we wouldn't mind him getting pushed out the door, but that's not going to be the case because obviously he's contracted Pato. And I think it's a situation where Carlton just play the waiting game, and the Swans just will come knocking on the door, I'd imagine, a couple times, and a deal will be struck. Like I said at the start of the year, I think it's a really incredibly high chance he ends up at the Swans. We've spoken about this for weeks, but I think now it's got to the point where I think Carlton will just take these assets, especially with this new father-son thing coming in next year. We actually do need the assets, to be honest. Like, we need the high picks next year. I know we'll have our first round of next year, but you get another one, you trade it out, and then you have a couple next year, you lock it in, and you use whatever for this year and however you want to use it, whether it's on a big fish or just going to the draft. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, it's a waiting game. I know Carlton supporters going, well, why is he saying we want to keep him? You just got to know. People, trust me when I say this. They are just playing the long game, and these other clubs are doing the exact same thing. Merritt's the same thing. He'll be a Hawthorn player by Wednesday next week. I have no doubt in my mind that, Essendon's going, there's no trade request, blah, 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 blah. He's going to be our captain, blah, blah, blah. I'll guarantee you those two players won't be at their clubs by Wednesday next week. So I wish I could fast forward for myself, for you, Pato, and for everyone. We could fast forward to 7:30 next Wednesday because we want to know the result. But instead, we're stuck here talking about trade talk, Pato.
Yep, and we're stuck here talking about Chris Keane from the Sydney Swans, that boy. But now I completely agree, but the question has to be asked. So last year, I would compare the Merritt and the Curnow situation very similarly. It's very similar to Christian Petrarca last year with Melbourne, and I know that he's requesting a trade this year to Gold Coast, but it is a similar situation to what it was last year with him wanting out of Melbourne. So do you see it to be a similar situation to what I do? Or do you think, like last year, I know that Melbourne I know that Petrarca never came out and requested a club to actually request a trade to, but do you think it is a little bit different this year with Merritt and Curnow? Or do you think it's just because of that situation last year, the Merritt management and the Curnow management and the clubs as well are all kind of playing it a little bit differently?
Yeah, I think in a way, there's similar situations, but I think they're 4 or 5 weeks in advance. So Petrarca that all happened during the trade period.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, so it was too late. It was almost too late to sort out a deal because I'd imagine Carlton or Collingwood would have found a way to get him in. So, it's a sliding doors moment. But, Merritt and Curnow, that happened probably a week after the season. few days after the season. So you have a head start on the talks. He spoke to Cox about a month and a half ago. So like that, Sydney are already probably thinking about how they're going to fit him in their forward line for weeks now. Going, how are we going to work this out? And now how do we get the deal done? And I'd imagine, even though Carlton are saying he's not on the market, there's no way they haven't been. There hasn't been back and forth, Pato. So yeah, no, I understand. I think it's in a sense, it's a similar situation, but I just think they have the extra 4 or 5 weeks, which is just crucial. Like Petrarca was just too late last year, and I think it was Oliver the year before, or it was very similar where it was just a bit all over the place. Like it was just too late. Like you just, Collingwood and Carlton would be going, fucking hell, if he told us, 3 or 4 weeks beforehand, we might have been able to prepare to bring him into the club, but they just couldn't. So I think it's a similar situation, but in this case, for both of these situations, they've had more weeks to prepare and sort out a trade.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff, isn't it? Yeah, but probably the last thing that we'll also mention as well, Daffy Boy, is Chris Davies as well has mentioned about Elijah Hollands, and he has stated that Elijah is exploring his options. There's 10 days of trade period to go, and if he doesn't end up at a new club, we will assess his future from there. So hearing that, if you can read between the lines, Daffy Boy, I think it's a very high possibility that Elijah Hollands won't be at Carlton next year. But we all know that he is contracted, so if he doesn't find another club, which isn't a guarantee, like he's not really proven at AFL level. He's only played probably a handful of really good games at AFL level, and his off-field behaviour hasn't really been great for him to go to another club and say, "Yep, I want to play at your club." Like that's why I'm quite surprised about Jamara Uwe-Hagen, but I think with him, he has a hell of a lot more things to answer for because he's played 1 or 2 seasons at a high level at the Western Bulldogs. Elijah Hollands has played probably 5 or 6 games at Carlton at a high level. So mention about Elijah Hollands, and if you think he will find a new club, and if not, what he needs to do to earn his respect from the coaches and the players back for next year.
Yeah, the big thing that I took out of this comment, and they spoke about what club he's going to go to, and then he said in that thing going, if he doesn't find a club, we'll see what we do with his future then. So I wouldn't say he'd be guaranteed to be a Carlton either way by what he said there. Like it's almost a situation where let's hope we get a trade. If not, we're just going to ship him off. Yeah. Because I don't know if I'm wrong. I just think that when he says, if he doesn't I don't have the exact words. So go back to the go back to the quote and just say, and I'll point out the spot where
Elijah is exploring his options. There's 10 days of trade period to go, and if he doesn't end up at a new club, we'll assess his future from there. Yeah,
that last bit. When I saw that, when I read that first time, I was going, oh, I was a bit like, oh, like they really
want him out.
So, I guess. If that's the case, then we'll be hoping we get a trade and get some sort of pick. Whether it's, I wouldn't be too much. It'd be a 3rd or 4th rounder probably, just in terms of because he's getting pushed out the door. And like you said, doesn't have the runs on the board. But yeah, that really, and I'm sure a lot of Carlton supporters would have seen that and gone, okay, that's an interesting situation. And I know he's contracted, but that can be easily ripped up. And he gets I'd imagine he gets some sort of percentage of a payout, and both parties go 2 separate ways. It's disappointing because I know he has the talent, of course. I don't think that's the issue, and that's not my issue. My issue is that can we hold on to guys like this when both of us have been preaching the whole season? Let's figure out this fucking culture. Let's get this shit right. We want guys out there, no distractions. Because we've had so many distractions this year. If we hold on another year, what happens if he fucking gets caught again, Pato, doing something? You know what I mean? It goes straight to the media, and what happens if we're playing well? And then the first thing on the front of the paper is something stupid. I'm not saying he's going to do it again, but it's the risk and the chances that he's got. He's had the chance. He made the fuck up when he first came, and we kind of put that under the carpet a little bit. You know what I mean? Going, okay, let's move on. Hopefully he gets to work. And he got to work, and he got his games, and he played good footy, and then whatever he did, he did. And clearly clearly they're it's I don't want to laugh about it, but it's just they're clearly off him.
It is frustrating as well because this problem was kind of like starting at Gold Coast, and we took the risk. So that's why I think I wouldn't be surprised if on the contract it's if there's any sort of trust broken.
Yeah, it could be.
The contract will be terminated.
Yeah,
so I'm sure there
some
would be.
term.
I mean, I've got no idea. This is me only thinking about it. But maybe Carlton, when he first signed at the club, was like one of the stipulations was if there's any sort of I mean, if there's any sort of background noise around you, and there are some problems with the same problem that you had at Gold Coast, maybe that's when we have the opportunity to terminate the contract. I know that's not very common, but maybe that is something that has actually happened with. I mean, we've got no idea. We will find out at the end of the trade period where Carlton might terminate the contract, and then we'll be like, okay, well, there obviously was a stipulation. But is there anything else?
Well, the interesting one with him is because we were going to sign him on a 2 or 3 year deal initially, but he wanted to repay the faith, so it was a 1 year. Exactly. 1 year deal for 24, and then he signed for 2. So I think your point is correct. I think that he signed for 2, and he had some sort of terms in his contract where, like, I'm sure there'd be a few players that would have those. I think every player would obviously have terms, but for those types of players, not many, but for those players who've made those mistakes, and especially after he's had a year, they might go, okay, we'll give you the 2 if you follow these and you tick off these boxes, and clearly he hasn't. No. So I'm not against him being for that contract being ripped up, Pato, because I think we've both been adamant. Whatever decisions they make in this offseason, we've got to back in because they've brought new guys in. We've got Graham Wright, we've got Chris Davies. I'm sure he'll have his say in it, and obviously Nick Austin, who's been there for a while, Pato. It would be a disappointing end, but you look at a stark difference with his brother. He's, I'd say he probably doesn't have the talent of Elijah, in my opinion. I don't think he has the natural, that forward ability, that silky. I think he's a good hard worker, Ollie, and I think that's why he's at the level, because he's a hard worker. And of course he has talent, but in terms of Elijah, he has that natural, silky, smooth kind of ability. So it's a stark difference, Pato, isn't it? That sometimes when you have the natural ability above someone, that doesn't necessarily mean you get the opportunity above them.
And Ollie would not be too impressed about it. And this is what I mean. We don't want to spend too much time on it because we have no idea what's happening behind closed doors with Elijah. But from a Carlton perspective, of a Carlton supporter, it frustrates me how he kind of has everything that he kind of wants, and probably everything is in place for him to succeed as a AFL footballer. And now he's choosing, people would die for his sort of played a big Victorian club, and for a big Victorian club who was in finals contention when they first signed him, saying, okay, we will take a risk on you. We will give you a 1 year deal, blah, blah, blah. Then to sign you for a further 2, and then this is happening. It just frustrates me. And I know I probably have no right to really say that because we don't know exactly what's happening behind closed doors. But from a Carlton supporter, and I'm saying that because he's probably my favourite player at the Carlton Football Club. I love the way he goes about it because I think he's the exact player that we need. And like 2024, when he was at his best of abilities, you can see how important he is for this forward line and the midfield, him rolling through the middle and playing his best games on the MCG. He's made for the big, matches. It frustrates me because I feel like Ollie would be the most frustrated out of everyone because he's looking at me and be like, mate, you have the fucking talent. Get your head right and get everything straight. The world's your oyster, and he just can't get himself right, and that's why I'm hoping that he has the mindset of, all right, I know I fucked up again, but if you give me one more opportunity next year, I will not let you guys down. And I feel like a character like this could really benefit from that, but also it could also turn quite bad.
That's the thing.
Kind of last thoughts on this, Jeffrey Boy, if you have anything else to say. But I know how much you like him as a player, but I also do understand your situation on this. It's tough when you get in this situation. I think
You look at Jamara; it's a very similar situation.
Very similar.
And they're clearly parting ways. So yeah, I think he'll find his way out of Carlton, whether it's through a trade or it could be a termination of contract. So that'll hit him between the eyes. So I'll tell you that would hit him between the eyes. When you lose that contract, you lose that AFL money. Like that's when you'll be playing somewhere VFL, and that's when you see the hard yards. Like there's a lot of guys doing hard yards in VFL and who haven't had the opportunity he has to play at 2 different clubs. So it's disappointing, but whatever decision they make, I'll be fully on board.
Yep, spot on, Daffy boy. Very good first episode to start off our trade period. I know that most of the episodes, I mean, we don't know, but this one has obviously gone just under 40 minutes. But it was good to get on for our first episode. But we'll see where episodes go. Some will be an hour, but some will only be 10 minutes. It really is depending on each day. And we know that some days there will be absolutely nothing from a Carlton perspective, but we also know that some days there will be a lot to touch on today. But before we wrap up the episode, Duff Boy, is there anything else you would like to touch on?
Yeah, just remain patient, and it'll all happen in due time. I think there'll be a couple of our deals getting done in the next couple of days with Carmuses and Chesser and Reedy and I'll just say one thing quietly. I think Liam Reedy will be handy. I'll just say that quietly. I think he could have the chance to be the number 1 ruckman at Carlton.
Well,
I think I just think he's had that twos experience. He's 24, 25. He's Victorian, comes home, hasn't had the opportunity. You see it with a lot of ruckman, Pato. I'm keen. I'm not saying he's going to be superstar. I'll say it again. I'm not going to say he's going to be a superstar, but maybe we get a guy in who is quarter of the price and same output as TDK.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I was also about to say he is playing behind Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson. So
not getting in that team.
You cannot get in. And he's 25. Yeah. He's been on the list for a few years now. So it's more like you kind of look at that and be like, well, there's a reason why Fremantle have kept him on the list. And he's obviously talented. And they also brought over Luke Jackson. So it's quite hard for him to get in. And he's probably realizing that. And for Carlton to also show interest, there is obviously something there because we need to make a trade. It's not like we're getting him through the draft or anything. We are making a trade for Liam Reedy. And I know that we might get him through the preseason draft because he is out of contract. But Fremantle is willing to re-sign him if Carlton don't get him. So there is a lot of things about it. But I personally think that he will be a great signing in the offseason. But like I said, Daft Boy, always a pleasure coming on. And we have plenty of episodes ahead to do for the trade period. But every single blue bagger out there, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on this YouTube channel. There is, as I said, a lot of content coming your way. So every single trade period, every single trade day, trade period day of trade period, however you say that. There will be some baggers trade content coming your way. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. But also check out our socials so you don't miss anything from a Carlton perspective. But to you, Daffy boy, and to every single blue bagger out there.
The baggers.